Hello and welcome to Worship Tutorials Live. You're hanging out with, you know what I gotta do, guys? With Fuller, Bradford, and Brian here. I gotta adjust the microphone a little bit. Can you see that in the shot? That's the question I have. So today we're gonna talk about our greatest fears as worship leaders. We each have one to share, at least one.
Multiple.
I have a few. Oh wait a minute! I'm gonna look and make sure that my
we're good.
Audio? Yeah. No, the mic stand isn't in the shot. It's not. So yeah, if you're watching along, please comment, say hey, tell us where you're from, maybe. Hello from Asheville, Judah. You're like a neighbor.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Yeah, let us know what your fears are as worship leaders. We did a lot of gear content last week, so we're gonna focus it more on worship leading this week. Yeah. So who wants to start?
I think Brad should start.
I have no idea.
Bradford has zero fear.
Well, okay, how about this then? What's the worst thing that's happened to you on stage so far as a worship leader?
Shout out to Stoke Coffee.
Most embarrassing, maybe. Is that coffee? Because it looks like coconut milk.
It is delicious coffee. It's a half and half with a little bit of coffee on top. That's what this is.
Post your fears, guys. Post your fears.
I will say that week to week, I still get nervous. No matter who it is, I get nervous that somebody's going to tell me they can't be there.
Ooh, yeah.
I think that's a huge one.
On Sunday morning?
And like,
let's talk about that. Or
just even at rehearsal, or they forget about rehearsal. And then I have to... So I don't like leaving a lot of stuff in the tracks. Like, I like keeping my sessions really clean, just so nothing lags. But then it always comes back to bite me, because the 1 week where I pulled everything is like the week that like my keys player, little baby, got diarrhea and they can't come.
Oh yeah,
or
it happens.
Or like somebody gets stuck in so much traffic, they're like, I'm not going to get there till 7:30, and I'm like, man, it'll be worth you showing up for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So volunteers not being able to show.
That's a little on the light side though.
Well, I think what we should do is we'll each talk about like things that we fear as worship leaders.
Yeah. And
then let's talk about how we can set ourselves up to overcome them.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are things you can do to overcome that.
I love it.
And there's some great stuff being shared in the comments. So we'll talk about some of those as well.
Yeah.
So there you go. Musicians canceling at the last minute. I think every worship leader has experienced that, which is probably why they fear it.
Or not.
It's not fun.
Yeah, like to me, the drummer not showing up on Sunday morning.
There's that. You can get by without.
Every Sunday morning from about 6 a.m. to 6:45. That's about my most stressful time of the week, because is the drummer gonna walk through the door? And when the drummer walks through the door, it's like everything is gonna be okay. So yeah, I mean, I've only had that. I had that happen 2 times. Yeah. Once a drummer called me late Saturday night, sick as a dog, couldn't do it. Yeah. So I had a little time to find someone else. Fortunately, I found someone. But then I also had one weekend where it was the guy's first weekend, and he overslept. So, needless to say, I was able to get in touch with him. He did show up. He was about an hour late, which created a huge stress. But he's been solid ever since. He's been here for like 4 years. Oh, wow. So it was one of those things where it's like, that was the first impression. So I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. But he's actually, it was a fluke. But that is a huge fear.
Yeah. You got one, Fuller? Because I got one.
Oh my gosh. How deep are we going here? We starting shallow, and then we're going to get deep.
I'm going to make the room feel a little awkward.
Okay, why don't you go first then?
Brad won't, because he's just a kid. Actually, he's not just a kid.
You know, I guess. All right, so I'll go. Okay. I'll go slightly deep, but I'll save the big hit for you. I'd say, one of my fears is probably, I've been a worship pastor for about 12 years now. Yeah. I'm in my early 40s. Fact check. And I think maybe my biggest fear as I watch my kids grow up and stuff is in like 10 or 15 years looking back on my life and wondering if I missed it. Like if I
what do you mean?
Like what? if I wasn't the leader that I should have been, or if I wasn't, I don't know, maybe I look back on my 20s and 30s and I'm like, wow, I missed it. Like I was not, I could have worked harder, I could have been more efficient, I could have made better decisions. So I guess for me, it's like looking back and going, all the people that I've had on my teams, all the people I've done ministry with, staff members that I've built relationships with, did I lead well? Did I take advantage of the people around me? Not take advantage of them, but take advantage of the time that I had with the people around me, and really invest in people.
Steward over it wisely.
Steward over it, yeah. Seriously, it's like the parable of the talents, right? Like, am I going to be the guy that just like hit them, or am I going to be the guy that like really, really took a few risks? Maybe I guess that's it. Maybe a fear that I don't take quite enough big risks.
Yeah, you never, because there's a great principle there.
Did you ever shoes that Sunday?
It's one that I've learned through life experience, and not that I've taken huge risks, but I have taken risks that if I hadn't, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, and I'm very grateful that I took them and did some things like quit my job.
Yeah, I remember that risk.
Right? Or so I think that's true for you won't get, and this is true about what God has for you in your life. If you look at like the Old Testament, it has classic like Abraham, like God told him to leave and didn't say where. He just said leave. And Abraham had to take that risk because it would have been, the easy decision would have been to ignore God, which is what I think most of us do a lot in our lives, and just stay where he was comfortable with his with his huge family, right? So he took a risk not only with his life but with his children's lives, which is crazy to think about. Anyway,
yes, that ups the ante,
doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Right? And he didn't know where he was going. God said, "I'll show you where to go." And we always think, and I could go down this road for a while, we always think that like he spoke to God and it was different. He was an Old Testament patriarch. It was different. It wasn't different at all. It's exactly the same as our lives.
No,
exactly the same. Okay.
Well,
maybe not exactly.
Maybe not exactly.
Do you think? Well, how do you think God spoke to Abraham? Do you think it was an audible? Do you think it was an audible voice that Abraham heard? And God said, "I'm God. Do what I tell you," or I don't know. That's an interesting one.
It is interesting because
the
you
Bible
also
isn't very clear about it.
We have such a twisted lens.
Fred. You're like, maybe not exactly. You're probably right.
It's basically the exact same story. No, I think that we have such an interesting lens because when we talk about, like, for instance, we talk about miracles. Okay, so I remember when Jurassic Park came out. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, follow me here. The dinosaurs look amazing, right?" And so now you go to any movie.
They look fake.
Well, now you go to any new movie and everything looks like it's really happening. You don't even think about it.
It's all special effects.
Because we're so used to it, right? You go back to the 30s and 40s movies, they looked so terrible. But back then, they thought. So I think we have lost the ability to be wowed.
Desensitized?
Yeah, and so imagine 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, where no television, no entertainment, no recorded music, no nothing. It's you and nature.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think that you would probably be more moved by smaller things?
Yeah.
And so I think that back at that point in time...
Wait, guys. I've totally messed up this audio, by the way.
Oh, yeah? Cool. What'd you do?
Keep talking.
Brian put like a phase shifter on it?
Get a whole lot better, so I apologize for that.
We had like a EQ curve on it or something?
No, like I didn't have anything on it. And I put all the processing on it.
Okay, so it probably sounds a lot better now.
Yeah, so sorry that the audio was really bad for the first, up until this point.
Your standard for bad is...
You guys gotta let me know whenever it doesn't sound
no one has said
anything
anything about the audio, so I think we're okay. Not one comment about the audio, so I think
I
we're
want to
okay.
hear if we can have
But yeah, so I think that...
a whole lot better, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
You go back.
Okay.
Maybe
it sounds exactly the same.
How did that not change at all?
I feel like I'm in Back to the Future right now. I feel like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. Marty!
It sounds okay, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds good before.
Let us know how the audio is.
Most people are probably watching
Apparently,
on their phones.
I don't have it. The audio is not bad. It's actually fine. Okay, cool.
The audio is not bad. So my point is this. I think back then, you would have probably... I think God would have probably needed to speak differently, because you know what I'm saying. But at the same time, I think that there's a more awareness. So I think it could be an audible voice. Yeah, it totally could be an audible voice. But have you ever heard an audible voice of God?
Sorry, Curtis.
I haven't.
No.
Have you?
No. The clouds. It was not like Monty Python when God called me into ministry.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard.
Have you heard an audible voice
of
God?
God before?
You feel like you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in subtle ways, like in certain moments of my life as I look back. But I'm not sure. It's like one of those things where you're not sure, but you're like, wait a minute, what was that? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think God speaks to our spirits, and I think that He speaks loud and clear.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're sitting in front of a plate of 3-week-old sushi, and you're like, I probably shouldn't eat this.
That's not even a question for me.
About this.
It's like that's probably the voice of God telling you. Yeah.
It's where George orders the Clams Casino at the diner.
Clams Casino, oh my God.
And Jerry's like, really, clams? He's like, these taste a little funny. And he's like, I'm sure they're fine. And he gets like real sick. Okay. I think we just blew everybody's ears up is basically what happened.
Oh, so you got 20 decibels louder.
Yeah, so I didn't have like the EQ compression and limiter on the mic that I use, and then I just turned it all on because I forgot that I had turned it off. Okay. This is good. This is going to be a good live stream. I can already tell because we're already talking about. Anytime you talk about Old Testament and how it applies to our lives, it makes me excited.
I have like this weird tension right now because I don't know whether I should examine my life for things I fear, or if I'm a bad person for not fearing things. And I'm like, well, if I examine my life for things I fear, maybe I don't need to be examining to find fears, but I'm not.
Maybe you should pray about
it.
Ask God to reveal.
Maybe you're just a super mellow person,
sure.
and you're not. Like, I know for one thing about me, I'm super OCD, so I gotta have everything in place and structured and organized, and I'm constantly thinking of what's the worst possible scenario that could happen.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking for reasons to.
So you have made me be more attentive to things, but I just don't go as crazy as you.
Yeah. How do you handle the worst thing that happens?
With grace and truth.
Do you ever have you ever left a weekend where you felt like total like I'm gonna quit? Today was a disaster.
I have days like that, but the thing is some of the fears, and I'm not trying to undermine the things people fear because we're obviously not able to hear your heart behind why you fear them, but a lot of the things people fear can be fixed by forming strong relationships with the people that you serve with or depend on.
Oh man, that's so true.
Because at the end of the day, like I would have a hard time telling Fuller or Brian no because of the relationship we have. Like if they needed my help with something, but like somebody else asking for my help, I would be like, actually I already have plans, I can't, I'm sorry, or whatever. But like guys like this, I'm like, you know what, I do have this plan, but let me figure it out. I can switch things around. Like you have relationships with somebody, your no carries more weight. And so forming relationships with your team members, practicing over and over again, and like really knowing what you're doing, knowing your stuff, will change some things.
We'll
getting better at your instrument.
Because you're addressing fears that have been posted in the comments now. Over preparation, quadruple checking everything, getting systems in place, like all these things. But one of the greatest things that I ever learned from, I would say he's kind of like my ministry mentor because Nate Mariner was my first campus pastor.
Nate,
and such a good guy.
He like my first job in ministry. Like I led worship beforehand, but like this was like I was actually hired to be a worship leader, and like it was it wasn't just show up on Sundays. It was like way more involved than that. And he really was like the guy who taught me how to do ministry. And he was like, your team will reflect the attitude you project. Yeah. So like if you're stressed out, you are not leading your team in a way to give them confidence. Stuff hits the fan, things go wrong. You're bothered by something, you're feeling wigged out. Like no matter what it is, like your team is going to catch some part of that, or you may be just helping them just feel like they suck, and that's not what you want to do. No. Like if something goes wrong and it's your team's fault, like maybe a volunteer did something wrong, like don't try to address that on Sunday. That's another conversation. Right. Like finish out the day. But like if I had a terrible, terrible day, if my team sees that and that, it's not about lying. It's not about being dishonest. It's just the fact that like you could risk that whole day falling apart because then your team is going to feel that as well. That's good stuff. So I don't really let things get to me as much as I try my best to not let it reflect on things. Now, like if something's wrong, I'll or something doesn't work right, I say, hey, that's not good. We need to fix that. Or we need to that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, make light of it, and draw attention to it just so people know that, like, something's wrong and we need to fix it. Mm-hmm. But, like, don't be ticked. Don't get worried. Don't get stressed out. Like, I know it's easier said than done, but, like, you are the leader, and if you are acting confident in a situation where anybody else would fall apart, your team's going to want to follow you more. So,
amen.
I think maybe fear is an interesting word because, like, there's a difference between, like, I would say I'm not afraid that the drummer's going to show up. It's more of like a concern, like, and what will I do if it happens? But I think when I think of real fears, I think about kind of like what I had mentioned earlier, and you haven't told yours yet, really. But like I think the deep fears, like associated with what keeps you up at night, like what are you like? Do you find yourself sometimes laying up at night going, man?
And that's what you meant about seizing opportunities, capitalizing.
Yeah, right.
You could call it up because time is opportunity.
Yeah, time is a most valuable resource. Yeah,
and I have, and you could think of them as regrets if they're in your past, but also fears. Yeah, a fear being in your future or in the present. Yes. What are you not capitalizing on right now?
That's good. Brian, I think you should drop the bomb.
Okay, so here's mine. And I know that a lot of you watching might roll your eyes at me a bit because of where you are in life. But I'm just going to share my heart. I turned 40 in less than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow, you're that younger than me.
Yeah. You're 43?
44.
You're 44? I turned 40 on August the 13th.
Oh wow, we got a big celebration.
If you'd like to,
Angus Barn.
Angus Barn.
If you boys would like to,
let's have a meetup at Angus Barn with all the live stream.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So
your treat.
Yeah, my treat. Worship Tutorials pays for it.
2 months later, you're selling your house.
Yeah. Yeah, Angus Barn isn't exactly cheap.
You get what you pay for, though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so I turned 40. Not that that's a big part of it. Well, it is part of it.
It's a pretty big deal.
But it's not like that event isn't what woke me up to this fear.
Yeah.
But my fear is that I will... How long will I remain relevant in my current role? And so, as I age, when am I not going to be seen as valuable because of my age? And because of what all that brings with it. As a worship leader in a, quote, modern context, like contemporary modern praise and worship context, at a, quote, megachurch, and also as a guy who creates content for YouTube. Because, I think and you can dismiss this and say it shouldn't be this way, and say you shouldn't feel that way because it shouldn't be this way. But it's foolish to not understand reality, to not understand what is true about our culture.
Yeah.
And that is youth is valued.
Yeah.
And especially in like modern praise and worship contexts. You don't see many people who are... You can think of some examples, right? Because we were talking about this earlier, and you had mentioned guys like Paul Balash.
Yeah.
Who's probably in his 50s, I would guess.
Oh, over. He's like late 50s.
Okay.
Yeah,
Paul Balash.
Yeah.
Stu G, who we hung out with, is like, he's the guitar player for Delirious. And in that vein, Martin Smith, who,
Yeah.
But what you're naming are a handful of very famous people in the praise and worship world. And what you're not naming there are just normal. And I'm sure there are lots of just, like non-famous worship leaders in large churches, or not necessarily, it doesn't have to be large, modern praise and worship context, who are older, much older than me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's like, that's not the norm.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say like it should be different.
Sure.
Because youth is important.
Yeah.
And a lot of churches want to attract young people, right? Like that's what all these, especially a lot of traditional churches, and this is a reality that I think is really important to understand. A lot of traditional churches, their leadership says we want young people to come to church. We want young families to come to our church. Well, you know how one thing you have to do, I think, to make that happen. You don't have to, but one thing that is important to make that happen is to have young people on your platform in leadership. Mm-hmm. Because if a 25-year-old person comes to your church and everyone on the stage is 50 and up, I don't think it's likely they're coming back.
Yeah.
Because they see this as
depending on what they're there for.
Right, because they see this
if your
as a
church
place
is John
where,
Piper's church, then probably.
Yeah, okay. But like they see a place where it's like not very many people that like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that doesn't create much community.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talk about diversity a lot. Diversity is so important, and that goes for age and race and all that stuff, because if you have if you have a church if your entire stage is full of 23-year-olds, you're probably not going to attract a lot of
wisdom.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. If when I see a worship team that's all in their 20s, my first question is, who is leading these people?
Right.
Who's pouring into these people? Who are teaching these people? And the same, if I see a stage full of all 50-year-olds, I'm going, who are these guys teaching? Who are these guys mentoring? Who are these guys pouring into? Life is really, I think, about passing along to generations wisdom and learning, and this very reciprocal cycle of learning. Like, Brad's a good decade younger than me. I learned from him.
Yeah,
he learns from me.
30.
Yeah, he's a decade and a half younger than me. So I like spending time with people like Brad because I learn from them. I learn new things. I learn a lot of things that if I wasn't careful, I would be completely out of touch. Of course. Are you serious, Clark? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if I'm not careful, I'm going to become the old guy that is out of touch with reality.
I did an interview. I did an interview. So it's funny we mentioned Paul Baloche, because I did an interview with Paul Baloche.
I almost choked on my water, which made me laugh even harder.
I interviewed Paul Baloche. That content is still on my computer. This was almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
I just haven't edited it yet.
Great job, Brian.
Well, first I thought it was lost, and I recently found it.
That's
so
awesome.
I
may want to hold on to that footage.
Yeah, so I'm going to edit that video and publish it. But I asked Paul Baloche that question. And I debated whether I should ask him, because I was like, I don't want to offend the guy. But it was actually really... I asked him in a way, it was like... how do you remain... I don't remember how I asked it, but he talked about... One of the things he said, which was interesting, was you have to surround yourself with young people. And you have... Because if you don't, your relevancy will... You can just kiss it goodbye.
Yes.
Because... but so maybe if you feel that way... And I haven't been watching I have not been watching the comments, so I have no idea how you're responding to that.
Yeah, good stuff.
But if you think that that's not a thing, then then your eyes might not be that open to what happens in churches. Because I know I've on Facebook forums, I've interacted with lots of people, or I've seen lots of people talk about how they've applied for jobs and they can't get jobs and they're convinced it's because of their age, and it very well may be.
I think there are cases. Churches
want young people on stage, especially leading worship.
And I can tell you right now, if you're in your 40s and you're looking for a job and you're qualified and you're a great worship leader, and a church has turned you down because you're too old, they did you a favor. Because
true.
You don't want to be there.
Right.
Trust me, you don't want to be there.
That's a great point.
And so that's water off your back, right? I'll say this, Brian, you'll be encouraged by this.
Okay.
Last October, my birthday, I turned 44. Last October, I was driving into work. It was a Wednesday, I think. I was listening to the radio, and they had this survey, random, out of all the days of the year. I was listening to the radio, which I hardly ever do.
Yeah.
They had the survey. At what age does your life start getting easier? 44.
Oh, yes.
I heard that on my birthday, the day I turned 44.
4 years before I started.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so true. It's like you start to realize, Curtis mentioned it in the chat, but you have to become who you're supposed to be. And it means changing, it means adapting, learning. Yeah. And when you position yourself at a certain age, you have the resources and time and really the maturity to really focus your decisions. The wherewithal to focus your decisions and chase after those things that many people can't. And so it is a wonderful stage of life. Your 40s they say between the 40s and 60, between 40 and 65 are a person's best years.
Yeah, well, and you have the greatest impact to leave your greatest legacy.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Life.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
It's
people listen to you. You have influence.
There was another commenter, I can't find it. Oh, Leonidas said this, and this is something Paul Baloche said as well in that interview I did.
Leonidas.
Yeah, if you
is that really your name, or did you like stretch out Leonidas?
I don't. That's a good question.
He's Greek.
If you stay in shape, eat healthy, and
Yes.
keep your spirits young, 40
True.
is not old.
That's
and I
true.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that because I am not in shape and I do not eat healthy as much as I should.
Yeah.
And
So
Paul Baloche
cheeseburgers
said to me,
lunch,
he's
or-
like, you have one of the big things about it is to stay in shape.
Yes.
And because for multiple reasons, one because of your appearance, and if we discount the importance of that, not that it's important necessarily. I mean,
not
this is a
appearance
tough-
for shallow
This
sake.
is a
but
this is a tough subject to talk about because you can say it's not important, but that's not true
very
because it is important.
Yeah.
The way you look, the way you present
Absolutely.
yourself,
Yeah.
says a lot about. I mean,
Your
it's
discipline.
the way that
Yeah.
you're perceived by
Yes,
other people,
absolutely.
it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And it is very important.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing. And
because
because
we could go.
I don't know if I
because-
want to go down this road
because-
right
because-
now. I haven't prepared myself.
No.
Because gluttony is as much of a sin
because
as sexual immorality is. They are both sins, and we think that.
they have different consequences,
Yeah. And
but
they-
they are
they-
both
they're
detestable in
Yeah.
the sight of God.
But
Yeah.
the people who call out sexual morality are typically the ones struggling with gluttony.
Bradford dropping the bombs.
Not typically, but it
This
is not uncommon.
is an
How's
opinion
that?
brought to you by Bradford.
That is not uncommon.
No, it's true. It's a survey.
Well, you could certainly say that the Christians who like to call people out call people out on sexual immorality way more than they call people out on gluttony.
on other things, and it's like
Yeah.
you're
It's part of the Western, Western civilization. I would say also this idea of age is,
standing up.
talking about another fear of mine. I have 4 kids, right? One of them's 2, right? I'm 44. So when Jonah's in high school, when Jonah graduates high school, I'll be 60 years old. Or 62 years old.
You need to be be vibrant.
I'm afraid that I can't play soccer with him when he's in high school and middle
you
school.
and
So
I need
so
to
for
work
me,
out together.
yeah. So I've talked to you about that.
Let's do it.
So for me,
my dad's 63, my youngest sister's 17.
yeah. So it's very similar situation.
good.
But your dad's he was in the military. He's
Yeah,
taking care of
he's
himself.
good.
And so that's an important part of that physical piece is having energy.
Yeah.
It's not about looking good. It's about feeling good, and it's about having energy. And energy is contagious. Energy is contagious. Talent is not contagious. Energy is contagious. When you're really talented, most
Charisma,
people are
yeah.
like, I'll never be able to do that.
Charisma is a thing that is so important. It's really hard to define it. That's what you're talking about, right? Energy, charisma.
Not as much charisma. I mean, charisma is good too, but you can have charisma without having the physical energy. But I think just being able to get up, walk around outside. I was at Harris Teeter yesterday.
The bar is fairly low.
I was at
Walmart
Walmart yesterday shopping. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, that meme is so true. Walmart closes down 11 stores, leaving 6 cashiers unemployed. Totally true. There's no cashiers in the entire place. But there was a bus that came from an old folks' home.
Okay.
That's probably not the politically correct term. It's
retirement.
a retirement community. Let's say that. And there were people getting off this bus in like their 80s.
Assisted living.
Assisted living. And I was like, for one, going, good for them. They saved up enough money that they could get taken care of.
Yeah.
But there were like 85-year-old women getting off this bus, walking around, getting groceries. And I'm like, that's awesome. Because they have the energy to live and be vibrant and stuff. So all that is, I think, extremely important. So I'd say that's probably a fear for a lot of people.
Yeah. Brad Miller, thank you for your super chat. Brad said loves the 2.8 demo and playthrough, and now he needs to upgrade.
Yes, you do.
You're talking about the Helix. I will say, we don't need to dwell on this age thing terribly a lot longer, but I will say that there is also something that's very exciting about it to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because while I do think that my relevancy as a leader on stage at the church that I'm at now, that door may be closing, and that's not to say anything bad about the church I'm at or anything. It's just reality. While that door may be closing, there is a door opening, and that is one of pouring into the lives of people younger than me. And that's something that's why worship tutorials exists on the internet.
Yeah.
Is to pour into young any worship leaders. But, we want to raise up. We always talk about raising up a generation of worship leaders. Like, you'll say, like, older worship leaders often talk about, or leaders, talk about raising up a generation of people to come. Well, if you raise that generation up, they're going to take your place. It's just reality, right?
And hopefully do it.
And hopefully they do, and hopefully they do it better. And but you, as you age and as you gain wisdom and life experience, you get to be a part of that raising up, which is really exciting. And hopefully I'm at a church, and hopefully you're at a church, or part of something that gives you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
What's sad is when people are sort of like removed because of their age, and they're not given. What I think churches miss the boat, because you have an opportunity not to remove a person, but to put a person into a higher level of leadership where they are then pouring into other people beneath them.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. When one opportunity, when one door closes, another one usually opens. Really important. And to look forward instead of backwards. I think a lot of us look backwards on things. I should have done this, or I should have done that. Well, what about what you're doing right now? And looking forward. It's like the old Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The second best time is today. Yeah. Just like zero in and get on it and get going on it.
Mm. Yeah, but if you're feeling that, like I am, just understand that you have incredible value to offer, and and capitalize on opportunities. That's what you were talking about earlier, Fuller.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Opportunities that you don't capitalize on. Capitalize on opportunities to pour your value into other people. That's
good.
What it's all about.
That's good.
All right, let's talk about some of the comments we've.
There's a couple of questions in here I pulled out as well.
Yeah, you've been writing them down. It's good.
This is a good question from I think Johan Benavides, maybe. What is the best way to approach tension within the worship team? Tension. She said.
I have no experience.
Yeah, right.
That's
a great question. And I can tell you from the worship manual thread that that's a common question.
Yeah.
So, who wants it?
I feel like I would need to know a little bit more about why there's tension.
You already talked earlier about like the biggest factor about how
relationships.
Yeah, how you navigate that. You've already been there.
Tension as a leader, you kind of it's backwards in our society. I think we think as leaders that means we have the right to know anything, and because we're leaders, we can say anything we want. I'm the boss, you do as I say. I'm the boss, I need to know what's going on, or that kind of, or I'm the boss, and because of positional leadership, you should follow me. But when it comes to worship leading and ministry and all that in general, or just really everything should be done this way. Leadership should be done from a relational standpoint, because if you have relationships with people, then it's influential. They're more likely to want to follow you because of the influence you have. So if there's tension, I would suggest assuming the best about these people as individuals and asking questions that separately, maybe on a separate time frame. Like, don't do it right before rehearsal, because you could really change the vibe of rehearsal and it could be not good. Don't do it on a Sunday. Like, take them out to lunch after Sunday. Take them out to lunch or dinner any other day of the week, and just say, because leaders define reality, just say, I have noticed this, and tell them what you have noticed. Or just say, I've noticed there's some tension. I've noticed there's some things happening, and I'm not really sure what that could be around, and I want to help you. I want to help us get better and be better, and I want to figure out what may be causing it. Like, can you just help me realize if there's something that maybe I've done or something that I could do to help alleviate that? And take it separately and as an individual and hear their heart, because typically sometimes these people are just like, they don't think anybody's noticed, or they don't even think there's anything wrong with how they're doing things. And so drawing attention to it could be the first thing. But then, you're using a Matthew 18 principle by confronting that person.
That's good. Absolutely.
Separately and individually. So you confront in private, praise in public, and asking them what's going on. If it's another individual, then go to that other individual separately, and then try to hash something out. And then if that doesn't work, try to get those two people together, and all that. But like, it's just a conversation, and ask questions and assume that, and like, no, not like play the victim and not play like self-pity, but like assume that maybe as the leader you did something wrong. And in the sense of like just saying like, hey, help me understand if there was something I've done to create this tension.
Yeah.
Because it shows humility and it shows willingness to change and to serve. And if you're on the other side saying like, hey, you need to stop this right now. This is bad for our team. Like what you just did is way worse.
maybe not assume that you did something wrong, but offer the suggestion that you're willing to do something to. Yeah. You're willing to.
It depends on the situation, right, I guess is what I mean. Yeah.
There's a lot of different kinds of tension too. If there's a team chemistry tension, that I find is one of the hardest ones to deal with. Team chemistry. Like a certain person doesn't get along with a certain person. Yeah. But that's also the one you got to deal with the quickest and the most. But I think with worship leading, and Doug Dolphin talks about this, or Dave Dolphin talks about this a lot, is it's just leadership. Everything comes down to leadership. Yeah. And so I would say for a lot of you worship leaders, one thing you should probably start doing is just go buy some great leadership books. We spend a lot of time on music theory.
360 leadership.
That's a good one. There's a ton. Just go to Barnes & Noble and go to the leadership section. You're like, oh my gosh, I want to get all these. But there's a lot of problems that can be dealt with that can be handled by great leadership. Yeah. And there's so many smart people out there who have been there and done that. Yeah. But I think with tension, man, that's the one thing you can't let slide. Yeah. And ask yourself, did I play a role in this?
Don't hope it goes away.
Sometimes the tension can be created by the environment you're making. Like, for example, teams where you don't have weekly rehearsals, you show up on Sunday morning, and then you give them the songs like Saturday night, you're going to have tension no matter what, because you are actually creating an environment that is inducive to tension. So I would try to work and make sure that you're not creating an environment. This is, again, Leadership 101 says, if it's a problem on your team, you're the leader, right? So it's your problem. I would try to create environments where it leaves room to reduce tension, meaning people aren't stressed, people are punctual, people have time to prepare, people are being encouraged, people are being fed. Often it's a spiritual issue, and we got to make sure that we're feeding our team spiritually. Otherwise, it's just a band practice, and that's not really worth it,
Yeah.
So,
but I would say because you're asking about tension, you're probably doing things right because
absolutely.
So the person that I'd be worried about is a person who just pretends like there's nothing there. So
yeah. You got anything else for us, Fuller?
Oh yeah, there's tons of
other questions. Yep.
So here's a good one.
What time is it?
This is a good one.
We got a few more minutes. We got like 15 more
This is a fear from Christian Baker, but I think it's worth talking about. And he says this, I think a big fear I have is that I don't actually belong as a worship leader. Oh. And I'm wrongly taking the position that someone else is being called to.
That's a big one.
It's imposter syndrome is what it's called. But that's something I think, I know I've dealt with that before.
You fear you're an imposter, like that you're not really equipped for the role.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, what if people... I joke with people a lot when I work with orchestras and stuff. I always say, I hope people don't find out I'm a fraud. Because...
I think that about YouTube all the time.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Like, but there is a real thing.
If you knew, how... Like when I play electric guitar, I feel that way.
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh.
If you knew that I'm not an electric guitar player and that I'm faking these chords as much as possible. Anyway. Yeah.
It's like we're sitting here playing the lead to Echo, and then we get a video from Doug Doppler at the Steve Vai camp, and you're like, all right, I'm quitting.
I'm done.
But there is this...
I've already quit.
Twice.
I've already quit twice. Rehearsal last night, didn't play guitar.
Seriously.
So the fear was that they're in a role as a worship leader, but that
don't belong there.
They don't belong, and somebody else should be. Yeah. Or maybe somebody else could do it a lot better, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
So how do you address that?
First of all, that's the lie from the enemy, right? Because I believe this. You got to ask yourself this question. Do you think God makes mistakes? And if that answer is no... Which hopefully it probably is.
Can of worms. Yeah. Say no.
Then you are in the place that you're supposed to be now. That doesn't mean 20 years from now. It doesn't mean 5 years ago. But right now you are in the place and God has you there for a reason. I think sometimes also we have to look at what God wants to do in us and through us, and that's why we are in a certain position. Yeah. I mean, how many times have you looked at someone and go, "Oh, I could do that," or or you've looked at other people and like, "Wow, they should have my job." But the reality is, you don't know the whole story. You don't know what God has for you and what God has planned. But I do know this, that God has you exactly where you're supposed to be for this season. And so you got to just rebuke that voice, and you got to say, you know what, I'm not going to hear that lie from the enemy, because that's the way the enemy uses us, and he gets in our way of being great worship leaders, because now we're on stage doubting ourselves or wondering if we can do it. And that's all lies, man. Like, you can do it. Like, and it's not because of who you are, it's because of who Jesus is, right? And so I think just remembering Jesus died for me, and now I am qualified.
Right. I think, there's another thing here too. I think a lot of times people might assume that or might fear that because the task that is ahead of them feels like it's something they can't do, or because they feel like they don't have enough talent to execute at a level that they should. In which case, you have the same decision to make. You can either look at that task, look at what it is, the responsibility you have, whether it's building a worship team from nothing, whether it's your leadership has asked you to basically change the style of music, which happens a lot, which is a massively difficult thing to do, or whether you're playing and singing a song in front of hundreds or thousands of people that you don't think you can pull it off. Your choices are to give into that fear and fail, or like don't complete the task or botch the song.
Yep.
Or there's a lot of hard work involved, and you just have to do it. You have to. You have to surround yourself with people that will help you. Yeah. You don't have to do it by yourself. No. But you have to do it. Yeah. If it's building that team, you've got to find resources that help you understand how, and then you have to do the work. And if it's executing, whether it's playing guitar or singing something, you just have to practice. Yeah. You have to. And there's no substitute for it. No. Jesus dying on the cross for you,
that's good,
saves you, but doesn't teach you how to play
a G chord,
like a minor pentatonic scale.
That is correct. But if it did, that'd be awesome.
Right? You have to do that yourself.
So, I always tell my oldest kid, not always, but I say this a lot to them whenever they start doubting themselves, is whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're correct.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
And so it really comes down to making that choice, and hey, I'm gonna do this. That's good.
Jonathan Hudson, thank you for your super chat. There's a question underneath it.
No, he just was being very kind.
Gotta run to lunch. Thank you for all you do.
I gotta run.
I really appreciate that, Jonathan.
I literally need to run to lunch because.
Are you very hungry?
Because of what you're gonna eat?
No, run because of what I'm gonna eat.
Yes. Burn the calories first. Get your metabolism.
A Chick-fil-A opened up in Mebane. Oh my gosh. Out of the last 4 meals that I have had, 3 of them have been Chick-fil-A.
Number 1 combos.
Spicy chicken sandwich. Actually, yesterday morning and this morning, I had a 10 count of chicken minis.
Brad Miller just said, "Thanks, Dad." I don't know. Was he speaking to me? You just got to do the work. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. That doesn't help me feel any younger, Brad. Okay?
So let's
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying? Chicken minis?
Nothing
He's
relevant. He's
got to run to lunch.
Okay. Nothing relevant. Just talking about Chick-fil-A.
3,000 calorie peach frozen drink.
I went to Chick-fil-A the other day, and I was going to get spicy chicken combo with waffle fries, which is my go-to. That's what you said too, right? And I decided to get a salad with grilled chicken instead.
Yeah, that's good.
Yesterday for lunch, I had a salad and
I don't regret
nuggets.
it. You got a what?
I had a salad with grilled nuggets yesterday.
I get the salad a lot, and a free hack at Chick-fil-A, because I got a lot of hacks. Extra boiled eggs.
Yeah.
Ew.
I'd like 2 extra boiled eggs, and they don't charge you,
really?
And it's all this extra protein, which is really
I do
good.
like boiled eggs on my salad, depending on the type of salad. If it's Cobb salad, yes, I like egg in it. Okay. What else you got?
Well, I thought we got about 12 minutes. I thought we could maybe talk about some things we could do to minimize the fears. I wrote down a couple. I just kind of collected some of the common things that I saw. One common thread is getting off the click track. That's a huge fear.
Yes. There were a lot of performance-based fears.
Not enough volunteers. Drummer not showing up. Audio tech issues was a big one.
A lot of audio issues, yes.
And then this is a good one. Out-of-tune guitars, because that one can kill a song. Yeah. And the old capo position errors. But maybe talk a little bit about what we can do to minimize mitigate.
2 words come to mind for that. Is practice.
Practice.
And prepare.
Yeah.
The preparation part will help you with your computer issues. Like Fuller and I did a lesson in the worship manual, and we talked about you as a worship leader, you need to show up an hour before anybody else.
Yeah,
at least.
Legitimately show up. Your call time is 6 a.m. That's pretty early call time.
Yeah.
You need to be there at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And like every weekend. And the reason you do that is so that you can turn all the computers on. You can run through click tracks and stuff. You can make sure all the systems work.
You can have all your stuff set up.
Yes.
You can be in the right headspace.
Yes.
All of that.
Because you will have an issue on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed you will have an issue on Sunday morning. And you have an hour to fix it.
Yes.
Okay?
And
then when everyone shows up, guess what? Everything runs.
Which is always just enough time.
Right?
Have you ever noticed an hour is just enough time?
Like you sit down with a cup of coffee and then in walks your drummer because they showed up 30 minutes early.
Yeah, that's true. Some people show up early and you don't want them showing up before you're there.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
That does not.
They're waiting in your car for you to unlock the building.
Yeah, I've been there when the guy's waiting for me to show up. Boy, it does not feel good.
That's not good.
And if it feels okay to you, then you need to make it not feel good.
Yeah. So getting off the click, that's a big one. That's one that you have to just get to the point where your team is so used to doing it, it's almost like it's not even there. And then the other thing is, here's the deal, like if you get off, who cares? Like just kill it and move on. Like I think sometimes I used to do this a lot about probably my early years of leading worship, man, train wrecks on stage just destroyed me. And now I just laugh them off. Like, the reality is, if you're going to have times where the click gets off or something goes wrong or someone starts the wrong click or whatever it is, it's not the end of the world. Just, like, kill it, laugh about it, and then just move on.
Well, okay, so you need it brings up another point.
Backup plan.
Whoever's running click tracks, whether it's someone on stage or for us it's someone in production, so it's like somebody at the booth that we're looking at as a worship leader. You need some sort of a signal that means cut the click track, right? So for us,
not like this.
Don't do this. For us, it's this. So if anyone's ever doing this, and hopefully you get to a point with your production people where they just know you're off, it needs to go away. And it happened to us the other day. I don't know if you were there or not, but at our main campus, like we never get off the click track. I can remember
a handful of times,
like a couple times in the past years, that we've had to cut a click track.
Yeah,
but it happened the other day. We had to cut one.
Yeah,
and guess what? It was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we played the song. It sounded great. It felt great.
Yeah.
People probably didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was there was like a weird measure, and we came into the leader came into the verse either a beat early or a beat late.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was like, it was all going to be off by one beat.
I was there.
And we cut it.
You were there. Okay. Yeah, we killed it.
And it felt great.
Fun. Yeah.
So you need to prepare yourself to a point where you don't need it.
Yeah.
And also have a signal where you can do it discreetly.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to stop the music
and
restart. That's a pro tip.
I'd say also every worship leader every Sunday should have something in their back pocket that you can do by yourself just in case everything goes terribly wrong.
Yeah.
For me, it's always How He Loves. I'm always like, hey, and no matter what happens, I might just start playing How He Loves because it's 4 chords. The verses are repetitive, and I've done it a million times. And most of the band knows it. They'd probably jump in. But I would always have something, because the worst is when things go wrong and you're like, oh, crap, what do we do? Yeah. Just have it. Maybe it's a spiritual direction. Maybe it's a story you want to share. No matter what. I was in Sanford last week, and we had some video issues, and I was just like, all right, if the video doesn't play, here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Everyone knew, and... we didn't have to, but we had a plan, and having a plan kind of mitigates those issues that could happen.
Yeah. A couple super chats. I'd like to shout out to David Ingalls. Send some love to the old guys who came before you. That's a good one. Thank you, David.
Fuller and also Brian, here is some love for you guys from me to you.
Also to remember that nobody does really anything on an island. You're always standing on the shoulders of those who came before you. Yeah. I heard somebody talk about that once.
No, it's a quote that you probably saw in your mother's bathroom above the toilet.
Yeah.
Well, you were a peon.
World bizarre.
So yeah, you're always standing on the shoulders of who came before you. Whether they built something great for you that you're enjoying, or whether they screwed it all up and now you're trying to clean up the mess. But hopefully, you know, and in your own life, people have always poured into you to make you the person you are. Whether it's your parents or a mentor or a pastor or something. So it's important to honor that. Leslie said, thank you for your super chat. Says the resources and tutorials you put out help so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you, Leslie. Did I miss any? Okay, let's continue.
Is Leslie, are those I think I looked it up last week. Are you from South Africa?
Where are you from?
He's from India.
It's a different currency.
He's from India.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
From India.
He's in these chats all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a comment here I want to talk about real quick from Cletus Flynn.
Okay.
Says, I have an elderly keyboard player who is talented but requires standard music. I need to let her go, but in a nice way, so I can build the young members into a leadership position. So I would just push back a little bit, Cletus, and say, why do you need to let her go? Is she, because if she's a great piano player and just needs standard notation, man, there are weekends where I wish we had a keyboard player that could play what I write down.
This is a common thing.
Yeah, so I would say, are there other issues, or are you just at a point where, because it's a little more work, right, to if someone's not trained. But there's also, you'd be surprised if you challenge people what they can learn. We've taken many classical piano players, usually, more senior in age, and taught them chords, showed them how to play pads and those basic things. I mean, you could literally, here's the deal, you could literally write in standard notation every chord. Just here's the chord, play these chords. Yeah. And that's all she would need. It's like a kind of like a cheat sheet. Mm-hmm. And then you got someone who's reliable, that plays the right notes, that probably has great technique. And so I would just ask that question. I mean, don't get rid of someone just because they're maybe a little more work. So
it does require more work.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that's pretty common. You have a classically trained piano player and you're trying to play modern style worship, and that style of piano playing doesn't fit for a lot of reasons. One, because usually those piano players play everybody's part. That's frustrating. But it's difficult to they play every part, including the melody and
the bass line.
Yeah, and the bass
and vocal harmonies.
Yes, all of it. But it's difficult to take a person who's classically trained and try and get them to play a different style of music, and that's what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
But like Fuller
it'd be
said,
like somebody taking us out of P&W and saying, "Hey, I need you to play Dream Theater." We're like,
I'd say that's different though, because you're actually asking them to do something harder. In this situation, you're actually, and this is why I always push back on this. Well, you're asking people to do something easier than Mozart.
But they may not want to.
That's a different question. Yeah. But if you can play Mozart's Turkish waltz or Turkish march, you can definitely play the opening to Cornerstone. Yeah. And so, there's always this...
which is a minor pentatonic scale.
Yeah. Is there a desire there? Because I will take all day long classically trained piano players that want to learn how to do praise and worship music. Because you're actually just teaching them how to do something a lot simpler and some guidelines, but they have the chops, they have the techniques to do it. It's kind of like if you had a classical guitar player that has a degree in classical performance, and now you want to teach them how to play lead guitar for worship songs. They can do it. Yeah. It's just, do they want to, and do you want to invest in them? Because if you do, you're going to have a killer musician on your team.
Well, what you need is, what you might need is somebody like Fuller, for example, to create a course for you that says how to take a classically trained piano player and teach them to play modern praise and worship music. And so perhaps we should build that course.
Perhaps we will
and offer it.
It's funny,
just like Brad and I are gonna do for guitar. Like how to go from strumming acoustic guitar to playing lead electric
which
guitar.
Which is a ton of people, right?
You just need resources.
When I was, I'm preparing. We're doing this night of worship. Brad and I are doing this night of worship Wednesday, and I'm playing keys. And so I was preparing I was just listening through the songs last night, and I was making notes because I'm building these patches, and I was making notes of all the parts of each song. 80% of them are straight piano. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's like just basic
There's a lot of
piano stuff. Like,
parts, yeah.
praise and worship music is piano driven. So if you have someone that can play piano,
parts of it are.
Yeah, well, but a lot of it was like, and it was easy stuff, right? It's not complicated, but there were things in there where I'm like, wow, this is like, I mean, a person that can play classical piano can definitely be a huge benefit.
Like we did we're doing King of My
Heart
this weekend. Yeah, it's like the whole first half of the song is just
piano. Yeah. And if all you can do is play chords, it's gonna be tricky. Yeah,
it's easy stuff.
And what's cool is most of this music's available. So
soon there is no ETA for the guitar.
No, don't say soon. When we announce that it's here, you'll know that it's here.
I just said there is no ETA for the guitar.
What, are you guys like not made of time?
No. Yeah, I have this pesky little thing called a full-time job.
Yeah, you do.
So we're
and everyone else is going, hey, how can I get a full-time job?
And contrary to popular belief, Brad doesn't just come over to my house while he's supposed to be on the clock at his job at work. He comes. Brad comes over on Fridays, and that is when we
which is basically like a Saturday.
I gotta throw some
for me.
Like I gotta give Brad some love. Bradford has a full-time job at church, and we have Fridays and Saturdays off at my church. Like staff do.
Praise Jesus.
Those are the 2 days off at my church. Work Monday through Thursday, and then Sunday. I can basically work Sunday through Thursday. Sunday's a full-time day for people. Bradford takes every single Friday. It would be like you if you work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. It'd be like you taking every single Saturday and giving it up.
Yeah.
Almost completely.
Yep.
And he does that to come here and make content for worship tutorials.
That's
So
awesome.
I appreciate that.
The world appreciates it.
You are working hard.
I am
And Chick-fil-A appreciates
honored
it.
to be Chick-fil-A will now have more of my money.
That's right.
I will swing by there as I leave Medina each Friday morning.
And it's a good, to me, it's a good reminder to people if you want to build something great.
Come on, preach. Come on.
If you want to build
Where's
something
my B3
great,
organ? I'm about to.
You need to work really hard, and it's going to involve you sacrificing things that are important to you. Because Bradford is sacrificing a day that he could do with doing whatever he wants, and he's trying to help build something great. And not trying, he's helping build something great.
Like go to Carowinds.
Yeah. And
go to Penn Station.
If you want to do that in your life, you got to sacrifice something.
You do, man. There's a book I'm reading right now called The 10X Rule, and one of the quotes in it says, "The harder I work, the luckier I get."
Yeah.
And that's the reality. Luck is not a thing. It's hard work and opportunity, and everyone has that chance to do it. You just got to do it, but you do. It takes a lot of sacrifice, and I applaud you guys.
Fuller's here on his day off too. This is and Friday is a day that you spend with your kids and your family.
That's right.
Because Fuller has 2 little kids at home who aren't in school.
Too big, too little.
Yeah, and
they're
so it's like and Fuller spends a lot of time writing music that you probably hear on TV.
Oh, Fuller
depending on what you listen
is
to.
one of the hardest working men I know.
Yeah, and so both of these guys are great examples of if you want to build something great, you have to work really hard.
Fuller puts his kids down and then goes to his studio at 10 or 11 p.m. for a few hours and works, and then gets up at 5 or 6 to be with his kids again.
And it's not just working hard for a month. It's doing
Fuller's life.
It's doing it for years.
You have to make that decision, and that's what you guys have done. I mean, look at worship tutorials over the last year and the guitar patches and all the stuff that's benefiting this church globally. But and this goes back to originally our fear, Brian. At some point, you have to take a risk. At some point, you have to get off the couch and go, I'm going to do that. It's so easy to talk about doing stuff. Ideas are a dime a dozen, right? But doing it,
execution.
How many ideas do we have that we?
Lots.
But getting up and doing it, and it's gonna everything you say yes to means you're saying no to a ton of other things.
Right.
So you have to really figure out what you want to do in your life, and it's like, I saw a couple people saying the imposter syndrome thing has been an encouragement. Just know, I hope this is an encouragement to you today to when this stream is over, look at your life, do an inventory, and figure out what the next thing is for you. And figure out how to do it. You can do it. There's nothing that you can't do. The Bible says with God all things are possible. So if God is in it and you're honoring Him and you're honoring your family, You got to figure out what sacrifices you want to make, and what you want to accomplish. And I do believe that God will honor that and bless that.
The great theologian John Foreman says, "This is your
I
life.
dare you to move."
This is your life. Are you who you want to be?"
That's a good question.
Also, the other thing we haven't
I
said
dare
this
you
yet.
to move.
The other thing we haven't said yet is the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
That was FDR.
You know, it's funny. We talk about
like that.
the things that we have addressed in this video are fear and worry, really, because fear is what we've talked about fear a lot, but a lot of what people have shared are not necessarily fears, but worries.
Yeah,
and worry that you're gonna put your capo on the wrong fret, that people aren't gonna show up, that the click tracks are not gonna work, right? The Bible calls both of those things sin, right? Worry for sure, but the Bible says fear. Do not fear. So many times. I don't know that the Bible says fear is sin. I don't think that's necessarily true.
But it does say do not fear like 100 times.
It says don't fear, but it's like, and it says don't worry.
It does talk about worrying being,
Right, worry. I believe worry is I don't know. Would you call it a sin? I don't know. But it definitely says don't do either of them.
Yeah.
And so but it also talks, I mean, it's like putting in the work and doing the work is how you get around a lot of it too. So I think we're going to end with that. It's 12:03. We've been on for an hour. Any final thoughts before we end up?
Be blessed. That's a good one. Remember, your fears are all lies from the enemy.
That's true.
God has something much greater for you. You just got to seek Him and stay focused.
That's right.
And drink coffee. And instead of drinking a soda today, drink a smoothie.
Or water.
You'll feel a lot better.
Or water.
Water is even better. Yeah.
Smoothies, they sneak in more sugar.
They do put a lot of sugar in there.
Depends on how you make it.
But they'll give you a boost of energy, man. I gotta stop drinking.
Thank you all for those of you that gave us the super chat stuff. We very much appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Brad and Fuller and I, we really do enjoy these live videos and just making content for all of you in general. We're gonna keep talking while they play some guitars for us.
I figured.
I kind of don't want to stop it now. Brad and I have some new guitars coming soon. We're excited to share them with you. They look a little like this on the headstock. This one's for sale if anyone wants it.
This cut on the G major.
All right, should I keep the stream going? Oh, Garrett Fry says, the super chat says, keep shaming the devil's lies. I like that. That's good. That's good. The devil, Satan, is a liar. That's all you gotta know about him. Anything he says to you is a lie.
Back up to Abe.
This is kind of nice. I'm just gonna keep it up here for a little bit.
Sounds like an NPR transition.
Promotional consideration provided by Stoke Iced Coffee.
You're right.
This is what I do all day.
They did not provide any promotional consideration. Just the caffeine that keeps me alive. All right, that's it. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.